Yeah, I'm definitely like ready.
We'll come back to that in a minute.
I'm always walking the razor edge of an autistic rant.
You're walking.
Like something could just set it off.
That's so true.
Like you don't have one in mind, but you always know there's one in the chamber. Just you have to know what's your trigger.
Oh, absolutely.
No, anything could be a trigger. That's the problem. That's how many autistic rants I could go down. It's like I'm fighting them off. I'm like, don't do it. No, this isn't the hill to dot. Nope. All right. Oh, that one. It's gonna get.
I bet Gary would probably score like a 25 or a 26 on that.
I'm not taking that test. You guys are passing around this like, oh, go take the test to see how autistic you are. It's like, no, I'm not doing the data collection. This is how like Facebook. Remember like MySpace
it was
and
just
Facebook? They had like,
Gary.
oh, see what Harry Potter house you're in, right? That's like the ad data start. That was like, hey, let me just get you to willingly give me all of your advertising data.
Just take your start 9.
On you.
Go through your start 9. Nobody will know it's you. You'll be fine. You can route that thing, and nobody will ever know.
Start 9's not plugged in.
Well, yeah.
That's one start.
Technical difficulties, autism, and that's a technical difficulty. Right. But I dropped that into the chats and I said, all right, guys, time to crown a king here. And I'll tell you what, some of those numbers came back were really impressive. I mean, we had out of 30s, we had some guys in the short bus chat that were way up in like the lower 20s, like 24, 25. And I was like, damn. Like, if there's any,
it's usually the ones that share the most memes.
Well, the memes speak to us, right? Like the memes really speak to the right kind of people. It like condenses all this brain thing going on, and it just condenses down into one thing. Memes are
like
great.
An emoji.
Memes are
it's like a complex emoji.
Here we go. Here's somebody who scored a 20 out of 30. And I don't even think that's the highest.
Here's some
I will take pride that I got a 19 then.
There's a Nostr client, and I was following this GitHub issue, right? So GitHub's like where all the code and stuff, a lot of the coding happens. And there's this client called Nostr, Nostur, right? It's a Nostr client for iOS. And if you do like a hashtag like XMR or like anything that's not like Bitcoin, it puts a shit emoji, like a poop emoji. And so like somebody like posted on like an issue that like and it made the code change that made it so it would not do that anymore. It was like, why are you changing what people are putting out there? Like you should not modify what other people are publishing. And the guy came back and he's like, nah, dude, I had like decades of watching people get wrecked and scammed and like all this other shit. And so like, if you don't like what my client does, then don't use my fucking client. But like very politely, right? And like very well like articulated and everything like that. And they're like, all right, well, we'll close this and like not an issue, close it out.
It's in the same vein of Satoshi, was just being like, look, dude, I don't have the time to explain this to you.
Yeah. I mean, if you're on iOS right now, go to the App Store, search Nostur, right? Nostur. And you can actually watch this stream.
Quit trying to church it up, Dirt.
Nostur. And you could watch the stream though and participate in like a live chat that I will be watching. I don't know about any of these other chuckles, but I will be watching the Nostr live chat at I don't know if Zap.stream works. Zap.stream should work.
Oh, it's up. Yeah, it's up.
Yo, nice.
Yeah. Our producer's on it today.
Hey.
Finally.
He's out here sharing all of these links right now where you guys are talking. Let's see. Yeah.
First of all, it's not called talking, producer. It's called vamping. Okay, let's get the lingo right.
Vamping? Is this a millennial speak? What is this?
Vamping? Yeah. I don't know. Pretty
Tell
sure
me
that's
about it. Educate me.
Vamping.
You can't just say the word to define the word.
That's a very millennial thing. You're saying no.
Okay, all right. I looked it up.
That autism score is, vamping. Could you use it in a sentence, please?
No.
Yeah, definitely. What does it mean when someone is vamping? Nope, that's not it. That's definitely.
Are you asking ChatGPT right now?
Dude, I was gonna say this is gonna come back with some like OnlyFans vamping with a.
It's like a musical thing.
It's a musical thing. That time at band camp.
So Gary's
heard it on a podcast a long time ago.
We're learning more and more, little bits by bit, every little podcast he comes on.
We got Coleman in the audience. What's up, guys?
Welcome.
All right.
Yo,
we are pre-show right now.
Noster account post? Jordan. It's you.
No, I was not paying any attention. Say that again.
Can't believe you. Disappointed.
It's gone.
I was wondering
You
if
know
the
what I'm
Bitcoin
doing
miner
right now?
is
I'm
Noster
literally
account.
making. Don't leave me hanging.
Don't everybody talk at once. Good thing we're not live.
Yeah.
It's the best part of the pre-show, man. Get all the fuck.
Could you imagine if anybody saw this?
Oh man, would just be over for us. Totally over. That's it.
We are.
I'm just glad that there weren't cameras and live streams around on deployment.
Yeah.
That would have been a problem.
I'll tell you, I wish there was a live stream on me earlier, man. I had my plumber out here. I will not say his name. It would be great for business. This guy is amazing. He has the most southern name you could possibly imagine. I wish I could share it with you guys.
Keith?
Huh?
Is it Keith?
No, it's Clay.
Oh, okay. Clay.
Just said, I wish I could share it with you guys.
Well,
Like,
the last name
was, man, Shane will roll over on you quick and drop a name.
No, his name, that's not going to give you shit. The last name is what solidifies. I'll tell you guys off air later, but it has to do with a certain religious book. And it is like the fact that his name is Clay Religious Book. You're like, holy shit.
Clay Quran.
That's right.
Very southern.
Book of Mormon. But at any rate, so I had him and his business partner out here today. And after we wrapped up out front, we went out and started talking Bitcoin and getting it into his business. And then like the whole, JQ came up and we started going down rabbit holes. In 10 minutes, brains were leaking out of guys' heads and they were like switched on. Like the light bulb was fully illuminated. He's like, God, what? I got to go have a beer, man. He's like, I don't even I'm going to have to digest and talk about this. And we need to revisit this like very soon. And I was like, well, you're coming back to do all the plumbing in the basement, right? He's like, yeah. And I was like, we can talk about it then. I was like, bring your computer. We'll set everything up. And
just after the plumbing work is done.
Well,
I'm not paying you hourly for this.
The great thing is he's just bringing a couple of his guys that need some help, and he's going to monitor. Me and him are going to have a couple beers while they knock out the work. And
training environment.
He's a good friend of mine, so it's just one of those quid pro quo kind of deals. I scratch your back, you scratch mine. We talk about Bitcoin. Yeah, and taking over the world. It's amazing,
dude.
To my rant.
That topic though, like that's I still have a Twitter thread bookmarked and saved into a specific folder to go back and look at for like the entire like family line, to look at like the lineage and everything, and like all the way back through history to cross-reference it against like all the like the major events and shit like this. Like it's something that needs to be looked at and has been very clearly directed, like in all of like Western developed world has been directed away from looking at. It's easy to understand how people's brains start leaking out their ears.
Oh, dude, everything you were ever told, man. And like, then you get into like World War I and World War II history. Gary, you kind of alluded to this. There's
Jack Cruz with Breedlove. Like I stopped listening to Breedlove after, well, a long time ago. It was, I came back to this on recommendation from a friend who, this friend is Jewish too. And he's like, no, dude, you got to go listen to Jack Cruz. And this one,
you guys got to listen to Jack Cruz. Has a ton of solid content. Like his Danny Jones stuff is good. It won't touch on this particular topic, but like
they talk about Danny Jones' interview in that episode. Because the first one, it's like, first of all, it's 4 hours long. So like, get ready, put your 2x speed, big boy.
The one you just sent me 4 hours long.
Yeah. And the one before that is 4 hours long too.
Danny
I
Jones
think there's a third one about to roll out as well. But the first one's like all health focused, right? Yeah. Like Cruz is like health on light and mitochondria and like all this other stuff. And that was like, I was kind of like switched onto that stuff already. And then towards the end, like at the end of the health one, he talks about it and he's like, oh yeah, like who owns all these like health journals. I think I talked about this last time. It was like, oh, it's Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father. And then it was like, you didn't think that was fucking coming. I was like, oh shit, I did not. But like, okay, I'm listening.
Yeah, he talks about that in the Danny Jones one. And he goes into like, that's where I researched it myself. And I shared some of the stuff that I found on Facebook, and Facebook was not having it. They're just not accepting that at all.
Wait a second. Zuckerberg apologized, man. He's not censoring anybody anymore.
But it's like it's crazy how like Ghislaine Maxwell's father constructed the scientific journal industry to make it into a money printer.
The whole thing's a money printer, bro. The whole thing's a money. The military industrial complex, you go to a defense cybersecurity thing, it's just like Israeli companies everywhere.
Yeah. That's something I've noticed. Like this, like you shared some stuff over the last 2 years that we've known you. Is it 3 years now? It might be 3 years now.
I don't know.
Like stuff that you've let slip, and then friends of mine that are also in the cybersecurity space. Like how much of it is based off IDF work? I'm just like, why? Like why is it?
But that was before I was even pulling on this thread. That was before I was down this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And then good friends of mine, like dudes I get I hang out on a regular basis are like, oh yeah, Gary, like you need to look into this stuff. And so I'm like, okay, let's check it out. Whoa. Wow. Okay. Like there's something here.
Yeah.
And it's a foreign nation. And like that's not
it's everywhere.
Cool. Like
yeah, it's everywhere. There is it's literally an infestation at the highest levels, man. And I was talking about this earlier today when people were kind of talking about, diversification of crypto portfolios. I was like, listen, who the majority of the people who own these other cryptos are, right? You understand what they're doing with this. Like they can complain about Bitcoin all they want, but these are almost wholly owned by that same group of people. And those shit coins are used for child trafficking, for rugging people, getting rich, for washing money for very powerful people, so that when it goes out and it comes back in from that nation, it goes to those people. And you're like, if you want a shit coin, go ahead. But it's literally against the same thing that you're talking about. It's like you can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hard money fixes this. Unfuckable money fixes this. Bitcoin fixes this, because the people that figure this shit out, one, there's two things here, right? You have Bitcoin, so you can't just be like completely debanked. They can try to kill you, right? That's been like a tried and true method. But here's the other thing, right? Is we have this information age where ideas are inflationary. The best kind of inflation, ideas, right? Like I share an idea with Mike. Now there's two ideas that are out there in the world. I share an idea with an entire audience. That idea is now there. Whether you like that idea, dislike that idea, agree with that idea, disagree with that idea, the idea is inflationary. Information is inflationary, right? Information does not want to be withheld. It wants to be free. You read this.
And every instance of those ideas is an opportunity for it to evolve and mutate too.
Yeah, because it's a different kind of context. Like the idea in my brain has a different box that it falls into than in Jordan's brain, right? Or Shane's brain. So like building out these context windows is critical, and sharing information, sharing ideas, open sourcing everything is how we solve it.
Yep.
God, network effects going on in people's brains and in society all at the same time. Unstoppable shit, especially when it's connected to Bitcoin. You guys ready?
Yeah, fire it off, man.
I got my pants on.
That doesn't sound ready to me. Take them off. Let's go. Man, let's go. Damn. Every time. I'm just so excited. I was so amped to be here tonight after kind of going back and forth with you guys in the instant messages and signals chats and all that fun stuff. I was like, oh, this is going to be a fun show. We've got Gary back, Jordan, Mike Hobart. Man, I am super glad to see you guys. We've got Tora Pottle in the audience. We've got new life from the patio. Tora upset him. Thank you for doing that. Slick's out there. Coleman, Man, this audience is growing all the time, and we welcome everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a veteran or not. This is Bitcoin Veterans. We are here to put you on the mission and and apparently sell some bid axes. Hey, Gary, if you like my Start 9, there's my
it's running off that Tesla power. You don't need wires. It's just
I'm really trying to tap into that 0 point energy, guys. Like it's not happening just yet. But hey, Bitcoin Veterans was devised by Bitcoiners who are veterans. We did this to put veterans on a mission, to give them some passion in this world, to take those ideas of liberty and freedom that the government perverted and flip the switch on them and put it right back into where it needs to be, right here in the good old USA. If you're listening in other countries, there too. Like every country needs this stuff. Every population needs this. Every culture. This is the way we beat the banks. This is the way we beat the war machine. This is the way we beat the DEI. This is the way we beat the ESG. You fucking name it. This is it. Decentralized technology that's brought to you by people that absolutely live, eat, and breathe freedom. So good to see you guys. How are you?
I told you I got my pants on already. I'm ready to go.
Sounds like you're not as comfortable as you usually are.
No, you need to be on edge. You should always be.
On edge. Yeah, that's why when you said you had pants on, I was like, so you're not ready. Because your pants should already be off.
We have different activities, Jordan. This is a public show.
Above the waist.
Public-private partnership.
Yeah, exactly. We're learning from our government overlords.
Yeah.
What are we talking about tonight?
Well, we've got a number of things. Obviously, top of the list tonight, though, I think we have to cover things, and I know a lot of people are like, fuck, stay away from mainstream news and all that kind of stuff. But when the war machine is, at least putting a candidate forward for the Sec Def position, I think that's worth paying attention to. So I paid a little bit of attention. Going into this, I already had my beliefs, and then I kind of wanted to see the theater that would be, what is Capitol Hill. Today, Pete Hegseth went up to Capitol Hill to sit in front of the senators and get grilled about some things or praised about some other things. And I would like to, first and foremost, I'd like to get all of your thoughts on Pete Hegseth as the defense secretary nominee before we go in and watch a couple of clips, because I'm curious as to what you guys know about him, what you think about him, and how this whole thing kind of went today for him.
The only thing, if it's the one guy that I think it is, and there's like a picture of him like getting out of a pool and he's got like Templar tattoos on or something, is that the same guy?
That's him.
That's all I know. So, Mike, Jordan, please fill me in.
I'll share my very uneducated take on him. I think he's saying some things that a lot of veterans and soldiers agree with and have wanted to get kind of like into the public domain. Particularly, my opinions that are probably going to trigger maybe not our audience, but would trigger a lot of people listening, is that I agree with his take that I don't think women should be in combat roles. And we had an episode like early on, right, where we mentioned that we asked the audience, and I don't think we had a single audience member that disagreed with that take. Like everyone chimed in saying women should not be in the combat roles specifically. I don't know a whole lot about Pete Hegseth. I know that he was a host of a Fox News show after his time in the military. I know he's gotten a lot of heat for that, and probably for good reason, for being on Fox and being part of the media conglomerate to begin with. But I also don't know a lot of I'm going to guess, knowing a little bit about your position, Shane, I'm going to guess that he's signaled a little bit about being allied with a particular group that's proving to be problematic for the U.S. and Western developed nations right now, which we're going to get into, I think. And then I think the other thing I'll say is that I think he's better than what we've had for Sec Def for a while, especially the last one. Like the last one's probably bottom of the barrel. Like you couldn't set a standard lower to have a better Secretary of Defense to follow through. But I think he could do some good things. I think he's also probably playing politics with a clip that we have of him engaging with Senator Warren in that testimony. While she's probably the one person in politics that I loathe the most. She did have I think she was in the right for paying attention to his words closely, because she asked him a question about generals not taking employment in the military industrial complex for 10 years after being a general. And he doesn't necessarily say no. And I know she's referring to him, and he had a good point that he fires back on. But the question still stands, and I kind of agree with her on that. Which I do not like. I do not like saying that I agree with Senator Warren.
I mean, my only real take is that, I mean, I don't really know kind of how he had this rise to fame as far as like the Fox News host goes, like what might have been behind that. That kind of makes me a little suspect, but for the most part, it just sounds like a more like a veteran who was at a position that actually kind of understands the ground truth and has not gotten into like some of the political games. I don't know if that is true, or if maybe that's what he leveraged to kind of get to Fox News. Like, here's a conservative guy that's like saying the right things. I was never following him for any of that, but I have a sense that that is like why he's picked to bring a little more like level-headed look at things. But I don't trust any of these people until they do something that proves useful.
All fair enough, I think. Let's the one exchange that kind of I saw today that was not just what's the word I'm looking for? There was a lot of manipulated questions, right? And this is what I always see. I mean, Republicans do it to Democrat nominees and vice versa. And I think that's just kind of shitty, a shitty thing to do. I think, Elizabeth Warren having this head-on conflict, I think that was probably one of the more honest conflicts that I saw, right? At least it was like she believes in fucking DEI, like 100% believes in DEI. And she thinks that she wants every woman to have the same opportunity as every man, going into this. And I should probably just let her in her own words do this. But I thought at least hers was like, hey, you've said these things, you believe these things, please defend these things. And let's take a look at this. This is going to be a couple minutes, then I'm going to steal of your life. But I think it's worth it to put everything in context.
Get the Q-tips ready, because your ears are going to bleed.
Yeah. Elizabeth Warren, also known as Pocahontas. I like to call her Aunt Karen, but she's right there.
10 weeks ago, you appeared on the Sean Ryan show and said, I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. Now, I presume you recall making all these statements?
Senator, I'm not familiar with the article you're pointing to in 2013, but it underscores my argument completely, because in that 2013 argument, I was talking about standards.
No,
standards are what it's always been about,
let's not
Senator.
have this same fight
Always
again.
been about Senate
I've quoted
standards.
you directly. We've got the video. We're happy to show it. But I want to be clear here.
Can we address this real quick? I mean, we're going to stop this and pick it apart and really have some fun, because I think Senator Warren doesn't understand a damn thing about standards in the U.S. military, especially in ground combat units. There are certain just certain physical demands, right? And one of those things is called a PT test, a physical fitness test, right? Like, you have to go out, and in the Marine Corps, it's got to run 3 miles, or at least back in my day when we were running up the hill both ways in snow, you had to run 3 miles. You had to do, 20 pull-ups was maximum. There was obviously a minimum. And you had to do 100 crunches in 2 minutes or something. And that was just baseline stuff. Here's the thing is, even at the baseline, women are held to a different standard. You don't have to run the same, the same time. You don't have to do, you don't even have to do pull-ups. You really had to do a dead arm hang. And I think crunches was maybe the only thing that was the same. you guys, we got Navy.
Yeah, women's physiology actually makes them better suited for the crunch one. So like we actually started seeing in the Army that women were killing the crunch part of the APFT versus men. But then yeah, like the pull-up stuff, like all they had to really do was a dead arm hang for however flipping long. It's just like, okay, like you're expected to carry a soldier and you can't even like pull your body weight up. Like, give me a fucking break, dude.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those things where there's a great bit that Joe Rogan did in one of the stand-ups where he's talking about, who's guarding the White House and everything, right? He's like, have you seen Shaquille O'Neal? Like, we're barely the same person. He's like, there are things that some dudes can do that most other dudes aren't qualified to do, let alone fucking women. Right. And that's the thing is like, there's no ill will. I love my wife. I love my daughter. I want them to be as badass as possible. Here's the thing is, I'm not going to put them up against, people who are their age and their weight and expect them to do the same things because we're different types of human beings, for God's sakes. Like, they're literally less bone density, which means less muscle mass. This is just physiology in general for human beings. And if your mission is fucking lethality, guess what? That shit kind of matters. Like, and by kind of, I mean, like, most guys can't do what these guys do on a daily basis.
Well, and like in a big part of all this kind of like indoctrination into DEI is specifically Hollywood, which just so happens to touch on another topic that we've already kind of touched on and we plan on touching on again, is that like you watch some of these moments or scenes in movies where these female combatants are just destroying men that are 2.5 times their weight and their size. And it's like, no, they would literally pick you up while you're trying to armbar them and slam you through the wall. And like that'd be it. Like, you're done. Like that doesn't happen in real life.
Yeah,
so like we have the entire population growing up believing that they can do this stuff, and then they get there and realize, oh, it's way harder than I thought, and when you're fighting to the death, there's no rules. So
here's the thing about like, and this might actually be good that they're continuing to go down this road, because I think especially against within the military, how this is just going to be the end of them, is they're acting like this DEI stuff, like putting women in combat roles, for instance, is based on the fact that like all men succeed and all women fail because they're not even allowed to. And it's no, men don't succeed. Like the weak and the old, like they get washed out and they don't make the cut at like and the higher up you go and the closer you get to like the tip of the spear, the more intense it is, to where like studs are not going to make that. Like, they don't understand the level of merit that is really like comes with it, because most men do not succeed at these jobs.
To what this Pete guy was talking about, though, it's the standards that matter, really. Because if there's like some chick that's like 6'2", Viking blooded, like weighs 240 and has bigger lats than I do, like I'm okay with that if she can meet the same standards.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, if she can make the same standards, then I don't care if you got a dick or not. Like, I just want to know that you can physically project kinetic force to close and finish on the enemy, right? Like, that's what needs to happen. And if I'm not confident in that, that means I've got to always, like, in the back of my mind, think about, oh shit, like, okay, I'm worried. And then there's also like this biological like thing in dudes where like my inclination is to always protect women and girls.
Bingo.
Like,
there it
always.
is.
So like if I'm in a dangerous ass situation, my immediate thought is like, where are they at? Right. And like, you're not going to, as much, no matter what kind of training you do, you can never remove that instinct. You can never remove that aspect to it. Not to mention, like, you fall into the enemy hands, right? Like, that's a bad day.
There's different ways of torture for women than there are for men, to your point. But like, and like, I would also add, like, to kind of what Gary was getting at too, is like, that's one vector for my argument, at least, for why women should not be in combat roles. If they're going to be in combat roles, they have to be in their own specific unit, segregated from the men. I will add that.
I 100% agree with that. And that's the thing, is I understand, like, a lot of times special operations units go out with females who are embedded with those units, but they are not actually Green Beret. They're not, Marine, Raiders. They're not Navy SEALs. They're not any of those things. And they go out with those units. Those units are not ground combat units going out to do ground combat. They are going out to do other types of missions, right? Like whether it's, human or, they're maybe even doing some SIG, whatever it is. But
Hollywood swoopy style shit.
Yeah. And I definitely agree. Very spooky, very highly trained, very lethal in their own right, special operations, but it is a completely segregated type of unit where there are no guys that get to do this kind of shit with those girls, right? Like they have a different set of skills. They have a different look. They have a different, avenue because they're preying on dudes that think with different parts of their body a lot of times. And that's just what it is. The other
Those are some of the most dangerous women I've ever met.
Hell yeah, they are.
They're just like, don't mess with them.
And guess what? Elizabeth Warren, they already exist. Like that already exists in the United States military. They just don't fucking talk about it.
Yeah, they're all in special I mean, from my experience at least, like they're all in special operations in these unique soft units that like they meet the physical requirements for that job. That job sometimes puts them in combat because they're attached to somebody.
We worked with one when we were out in North Carolina. I would put her as one of those individuals. I would not want to be on the receiving end of any of her dismay or like being in a bad mood at all.
I feel like I've seen them making it into combat roles. It's just they're not officially combat roles because the United States government lies to the American people about how many people are deployed.
And sometimes they don't know.
And there's also that.
The other thing I was going to bring up about this is kind of just culture in general. I don't know if anybody's spent a lot of time with the grunts. Marine Corps grunts are some of the most fabled, dirty, disgusting, foul-mouthed, homicidal maniacs I've ever met on this planet. And that's good for what they do. Now, when you throw your daughter into that mix and they're on, Camp Horno out in the middle of nowhere, Camp Pendleton, where they don't have any service whatsoever, they are literally subjected to, 0311, which is the military occupational specialty designation for grunts in the Marine Corps. Man, that is one of the hardest kind of trying periods in some person's life as a PFC, as a corporal, sergeant, you name it. I don't care. Like that is a different culture. It is something that most people have no idea what goes on. And it's one of those places where for me, man, as a guy who has a daughter, that's the last place on earth I would ever want my daughter to be. I mean, and not maybe last place, but one of the last places on earth. Like I don't want her subjected to something like that. Like she's going to be looked at. She's going to be, pursued. And, here's the thing is when you're that only girl in those situations where in the real world, let's just say you're a 6, maybe a 4, I don't know, something like that. And now you go on to deployments and guys haven't been around wives or girlfriends or just women in general for months in dire situations where they could die tomorrow. What do you think she becomes? I mean, she's literally living in a male world. Now she has the pick of basically the entire platoon or squad or whatever it is. This complicates the situation immensely.
Yeah, go watch Animal Planet and see how that ends. It doesn't end for me.
I'd just like to point out we're 35 seconds into this clip.
to one of the BVs, Travis West in the Nostr chat. I don't have a lighter female version of an M40 for you to carry, honey. If I did, we'd just use those versions.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Oh man, should we let this diatribe go back and forth again?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
12 years, you were quite open about your views, and your views were consistently the same. Women are inferior soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and guardians. And in case anyone missed the point, and these are your words from 10 weeks ago, women absolutely straight up should not be permitted to serve in combat. And I notice on each of these quotes, those are said without qualification. It's not by how much you can lift or how fast you can run. They don't belong in combat, period, or your words, straight up. And then on November 9th, 2024, just 32 days after your last public comment saying that women absolutely should not be in combat, you declared that, quote, some of our greatest warriors are women, and you support having them serve in combat. Now, that is a very, very big about face in a very, very short period of time. So help me understand, Mr. Hegseth, what extraordinary event happened in that 32-day period that made you change the core values you had expressed for the preceding 12 years?
Senator, again, I very much appreciate you bringing up my comments from 2013, because for me, this issue has always been about standards. And unfortunately, because of some of the people that have been in political power for the last 4 years, priorities other than standards, lethality, and meritocracy have driven decision making.
I'm quoting you from the podcast. Women
pretty well played.
Combat at all. Where is the reference to standards that they should be there if they can carry, if they can run?
He can have this position and still give respect and credit to the women that can do it right now. I just want to say that, like, straight up, like right off the face, he can believe that there shouldn't be women in these roles, but can still give respect to the ones that are there right now. Like that, like, I don't understand why you can't do both at the same time.
I think this, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here. There are going to be guys out there who are in these combat units, especially the special operations community, that go, look, from the jump, she had different standards. Like, they were just different standards. She didn't have to do the pull-ups. She didn't have to do the run time. She has female standards. Those are not the male standards. And literally, there is one standard for the combat MOS. Like, that's going to be the argument, I think.
That's the only argument. Yeah. That's it. Like, there's no other argument. Right?
That's the only argument I need, Sean. Yeah, that's come on, somebody's seen that, right? Where they're comparing LeBron James to Michael Jordan, and it's Bad Teacher, I think is what it is. Anyway.
Yeah.
He's like, how many championships does he need? That's the only argument you have. That's the only argument I need. Yeah, that one. At any rate, yeah, let's let them get through this, and we'll come back.
What I see is that there's a 32-day period in which you suddenly have another description about your views of women in the military. And I just want to know what changed in the 32 days that the song you sang is not the song you come in here today to sing.
The concerns I have, and the concerns that many have had, especially in ground combat units, is that in pursuit of certain percentages or quotas, standards have been changed. And that makes the combat more difficult.
Let me make a suggestion about what happened in that 32 days. You got a nomination from President Trump. Now, I've heard of conversions, but this is the first time I've heard of a nomination conversion. And I hope you understand that many women serving in the military right now.
She really thought she had something with that line, nomination conversion. This is going to be a zinger.
I got this new job. I'm going to be on TV a lot more, and I'm going to be a lot more public. And so maybe I should reconsider the specific words that I use as opposed to, 10 years ago when I was a younger man and less wise.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, what do you expect?
Yeah. I used to say stupid stuff all the time. That's all you found?
Well, it's not even stupid stuff. It's just like,
yeah.
I've got a more nuanced perspective of the world than opposed to 10 years ago. Like, that's the answer, because Look at yourself 10 years ago. Go back to MySpace or whatever you were on and look at the shit you were posting. Doesn't matter if you're 50, 30, or 20. 10 years ago, you're posting retarded shit compared to what you're posting today.
And unless you're Elizabeth Warren and a lot of these very progressive DEI ridiculous people, right, who have not evolved at all. They've literally devolved over fucking time. And that's the whole thing with this woman. She thinks she's really got a point here. She's just absolutely disgusted with Pete here. This on this alone, like this, just the surface level, this he crushes her, in my opinion. I mean, he's just like, no, hey, listen, all these
his lack of responding to her like at all is just like he's like stoic, just like you're not phasing me whatsoever. Very military. It's just like you're not doing anything here. Like you're gaining zero. You're not only not gaining ground, you're actually losing ground against me, and I'm just standing here. You're literally falling down the hill.
This is like the same look you get like when I've had a reprimand like an E4 that they know, like they're like, okay, whatever, just like let's get this over with. Right?
Yeah,
like that's the look, like 1,000-yard stare, but like very professional.
Yeah.
He
Are we
knows.
done here?
That was perfect. That was perfect, Gary.
Last little bit. I maybe we'll get the closing line in here. Maybe we'll see.
That if you can convert so rapidly your long-held and aggressively pursued views in just 32 days, that 32 days after you get confirmed, maybe you'll just reverse those views and go back to the old guy. And then
Let's hope so. I mean,
I mean, that's the goal.
yeah, I mean, well, and here's the thing is we had what was it, Matt Lohmeyer on the show, and he literally he was the first veteran kicked out of Space Force for bringing up the fact that DEI hires and promotions and all that was making everything worse.
Yep.
And look at what's happened through the rest of America since then. Like how many different major corporations and like titans of industry have dropped DEI on top of the. Well, has the military dropped DEI, or are they still trying to like uphold it? I think they're still trying to uphold it, aren't they?
Oh yeah, I mean, until Trump's in office and they've got somebody going, man, like they're not.
Ugh.
Yeah, they're trying to put in, I'm sure, last minute road bumps.
Field grade promotions still rely on DEI. So yes,
it's gonna be for sure.
It's gonna be pushed, right?
Oh my God.
Like that's follow the incentives. The whole fucking thing is follow the incentives. Like, what is the incentives? Right. Oh, well, if we don't change these uniforms, then you won't get this cushy job at a defense contractor after you retire, Mr. General.
That was a good line, by the way. I'm not a general. Go fuck yourself. I think what's going to haunt Pete, though, and what I find extremely interesting is this clip here where he's speaking in front of a bunch of Jewish people and Zionists and their Shabbos Goy that are out there. I thought this was a pretty interesting clip. I'm going to let Pete, in his own words, go forth. And I think this is actually what's damning Pete, not the standards issue with females.
Anyone that wants to take the stage and talk about dual loyalty is dead wrong. What this organization represents, what Western civilization represents today, is an understanding
really
that Zionism and Americanism are the front lines of Western civilization and freedom in our world today.
When?
Oh, there you go.
And who wants to go first?
I think Trump and Trump's administration is particularly indoctrinated to this kind of ideal without a whole lot of the Republican and the MAGA group being aware of it. I think that like they're like he's completely part of it. Like I don't like you look at a lot of the individuals he's like brought on board, and they're secret, like they're closet Zionists.
Well, not even closet, man. A lot of them they're wide open about this.
Well, they're wide open. Like a lot of it's wide open, but a lot of it, I mean, closet in the sense of they've not really talked about it, or they've kept it hush hush, or they've just like danced around the topic, and they don't really like. They just
You have to, because the whole narrative was this is a new administration, right? He's not doing it like he was doing last time, right? This is different time. No, it's the same fucking uniparty, right? That's the thing. Except this one is friendly to Bitcoin, right? We'll see how friendly. We're gonna find out real quick. Day
Game
one
theory is going to be very interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Like if free Ross day one happens, it's like, okay, the Bitcoiners of the world might have bought off the administration enough to actually affect some change, right? But like the real things are going to be like, how did the financial repression come down, right? Because there's all this posturing around tariffs and all this other stuff. So like they're financial engineering some shit, right? And nobody has any idea what it's going to be or what it's going to look like. We have an idea, but don't look at what they're saying. We will see what they do. So prepare yourself accordingly, because a lot of shit's not going to change, because it's going to be the same old song and dance. The same old fucking uniparty is running the show for another 4 years.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit last week. The only thing that gave me even the slightest glimmer of like, oh, maybe he does get it, is that video that he dropped with Jeff Sachs last week, where Jeff Sachs came out and was like, Netanyahu's an evil son of a bitch, and all this, in terms of being tied and lied into the Middle Eastern wars. That was interesting the day after confirmation. So, yeah, I don't know.
That's what I was going to bring up, because I agreed with everything that Mike said. Like, it does seem like there's a lot of those connections, but then he drops that after they're like, yep, we certified the vote. And it's like,
and to that point, Jordan, like it could be a Trojan horse situation too. Like they could be like an intel op kind of thing of just like, playing along to get along, and then just so that they can like slip some of their own initiatives and distance themselves from it. Like I'll give them benefit of the doubt. I just don't expect it to be so.
Correct. Yes. I feel like everybody wants to like latch on to something that's like, oh, that could be. And it's like, yeah, but when has Donald Trump really shown that he's done anything for freedom?
Right.
Like I said, we will see come day one what promises are going to be delivered and what are not. And I think it's going to be pretty apparent pretty quickly, right? With his, I guess, switched on as the whole like ecosystem is. Like people are like COVID, if nothing else, it triggered everybody's tisms to just be like, I'm not falling for this fucking psyop again, right? Like you can say one thing, but like Trump is a guy that brought us warp speed, right? So he's the one that brought us all the jabs, right? There's 2 versions of those for Pfizer. Like, come on. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. I am cautiously optimistic. At the very least, maybe he'll leave all of the Bitcoiners alone, and we can build the tools to free ourselves.
And I'll separate Trump from Pete here, because one of the things that I have a real problem with Pete is on this issue is, if you've been in a ground combat unit and the horrors of war, and you are friendly to a regime that has lied us into conflict, like literally multiple conflicts in the Middle East alone, possibly even Ukraine, you start to go, all right, man, like you are also one of those guys that rose to fame and were featured on Fox News. There's something about those kind of positions where you have these, meteoric, like kind of rises to fame, and you have large followers and all that kind of stuff, is like, all right, a lot of the people who get into these positions are already compromised, right? Whether they went to a Diddy party or they went to Epstein Island, whatever the case was, there's something wrong. A lot of what I learned about Pete today was like, he's already been through 2 wives. It sounds like he cheated on another one, has been accused of some things. And you're sitting there going, yeah, well, maybe, this guy had a drinking problem at some point, and maybe he did some dumb shit. And listen, this is the military in a nutshell, right? Like, I'm not coming down harder on him. I am coming down harder on the fact that this is where he is maybe going to be placed. And if you've got a guy that may be compromised, who's already saber rattling about Iran, that will possibly send American men and women into the fray to go fight their enemies, man, that's one of those things, or can be manipulated, coerced, and forced to do something like that, where, I think it was Colin Powell back in the day when he testified in front of Congress and lied his ass off about, the intel that they had in terms of going in and doing this. this is the big threat that I perceive from having a guy like Pete in that position.
It also shows that they're stacking the administration with individuals that are very pro going at Iran, because JD Vance has also done the same, right? Like he's been signaling about going at Iran. I think Trump has recently, I believe, don't quote me on that. And I think he has also in the past, in his past presidency. So like, it's something to be concerned about, because I think an article I shared, Jordan, I think you probably have more information on this than I do. Like the article that was talking about Azerbaijan being interested in going after Armenia now. Like, isn't that like is that a potential strategy to use to kind of like start digging at Iran too? Or no?
Yeah, I mean it's their northern border. I mean, we've been in Afghanistan, we've been in Iraq, we've been in we've been all around them forever. What's another one? You know? And it kind of is like, well, it doesn't matter whose side anybody really falls on. It's just another, really, that it's just an excuse to exert power and influence in Iran's core of influence, right? I mean, that would be my first, that was my first thought, is like, this is just another, literally, this is part of the war against Iran that's already currently going on and has been for decades.
Well, and this is why Bitcoin is so critical, right? So anybody like tuning in for the first time, if you don't understand, Bitcoin has this absolute scarce supply, meaning they can't print more of it. And what have all these wars had in common, at least in my lifetime and beyond? They've been funded by debt. They have turned on the money printer. They have issued shit tons of debt to fund this giant war machine to perpetuate these over and over and over again, right? What does Bitcoin do? It chops them off at the legs. You can't print more Bitcoin. Bitcoin held on your own keys in cold storage cannot be used, cannot be rehypothecated by some custodian out there, cannot be resold on some debt market to some trader to fund these kinds of initiatives. These shitcoin scams, right? Don't buy into the shitcoin scams. It's the same thing. It's just another version of a money printer. They're just making shit up out of nowhere. Why? To fund DEI, all this other ESG shit. It all gets funneled back to the same thing. It's the war machine, right? It's the same top level people controlling all these industries that fucking hate humanity and want to control it.
Damn. Did I mention we're live on zap.stream right now? If you're watching on X or you're watching on anything else out there, you can go over to zap.stream, which is a free speech platform, decentralized free speech platform that uses Bitcoin, by the way. And if you like what you're seeing, you can literally send us money without any intermediary whatsoever. And it's amazing. So a couple of these guys from Baked Potato, Zap for that banger intro. We got a Zap from Travis West, Dr. Nikamoto. We got one from an InPub. We got another one from Anon over there. We got one now from Monatini. He says the Fox News host is going to run the military for the game show host. Nice.
And if you want a short, sweet URL to get to that zap.stream, bitcoinveterans.org/zap, Z-A-P. Bitcoinveterans.org/zap. Check it out.
You don't
need to sign up. You don't have to give your mother's maiden name. You don't have to give all this information that they're just going to harvest and resell. It's just drop in, start an account, start shit posting.
Yeah. And you can literally just go to zap.stream. Will probably be one of the only live streams going on right now over there because we're early. And if you ever wanted to be early to something, remember the guys that figured out Google and Yahoo before everybody else figured it out? We're literally sitting here going, hey, Bitcoin, Nostr, having followers by the time the rest of the world goes on there, a larger follow account's probably going to be pretty good for some people out there, because if you can reach more people, you can get more zaps, which means more Bitcoin. And Bitcoin itself, I mean, it's the greatest asset in the world. That you're literally early to the greatest asset in the world. And that's something that most people in history will never be able to say.
And you can leverage this thing, right? Like it's not okay. That's a bad word to use. Leverage is bad. Don't get wrecked doing leverage trading. But I mean, you can leverage the power of Bitcoin. You can use and harness the power of Bitcoin, right? Like if you don't like where this world is heading and you feel powerless and helpless out there because there's nothing you can do, stack sats for 5 years and see how helpless you feel. I tell you what, you're not going to feel that helpless, right? You're going to feel more empowered. You're going to feel like you have time, breathing room to consider, to stop, to pause, to get to know your neighbor, to get to know the guy down the street, to go spend more time with your family. And then once you start doing that, you can start plotting for the future, right? Start planning some shit out. You don't like the sheriff because he's a douchebag and wants to put a bunch of speed cameras in your county. Well, fuck that guy. Maybe the next time the election comes around, you got a little bit of a stack you set aside and take some time off to run against him and outs that motherfucker, right? Same thing. You can do it at the sheriff level. You can do it at the state level. You can do it at the federal level. If the people that are elected by you and your people, right? If you don't like them, the best thing you can do is stack some sats about it. And then in 5 years, you're gonna have some campaign money. Throw a little party. Everybody's gonna like you. You're having a great time. You're friendly. You're chill because you're not stressed. You're not on this fucking fiat hamster wheel constantly spinning, trying to keep up, trying to make ends meet, right? Waiting for that next catastrophe to hit your life where you have no emergency savings. Bitcoin fixes that if you're strong enough and if you're smart enough to hold on to it.
Yeah. It also fixes the problem we have with honor, because on an honor system in a meritocracy with your name, this is going to be a name economy. And if your name sucks, man, there are going to be a lot of people that aren't going to want to do business with you. They're not going to want to give you sponsorships. They're not going to want to help you. They're not going to want to, do charity or anything else with you. Like, speaking of names, there's one name in the news that I noticed the other day. He's got a birthday. I think it was either yesterday or today. One of the only good congressmen up there, and Thomas Massey out of the northern districts of Kentucky. Thomas Massey got pulled off of the Rules Committee. I believe it was either yesterday or today, and there was a lot of rumors going around. Obviously, Mike Johnson, who's the 56th Speaker of the House of Representatives, is not a great guy, and he has screwed the pooch, and he sent a lot of money and dealt with Democrats on things, and just basically one of the weakest in terms of testicular fortitude speakers there probably ever has been. But I wanted to at least get this out there because I don't think a lot of people have seen it. Thomas Massey put out there in a tweet today. He said, "I volunteered to step aside, and the speaker wanted to place somebody else on the Rules Committee, and he chose that option. That was not retribution for my vote against him. I look forward to continuing my work on the Judiciary and the Transportation Committees." So I thought that was kind of an important thing. At first, I was kind of like, holy shit, man. Like, they're taking away, the committees from one of the only guys out there that's doing really good work. I think Thomas Massey, in terms of constitutional voting record, has something like a 99% on that, depending on who you're looking at, who's grading him. But he's literally the best guy out there, and has been the best guy, I think, for about 12 years now out of Kentucky.
And the guy's wicked smart. He took a wrecked Tesla and then extracted the battery from it. Right. And mind you, this is like, Tesla doesn't have this like schema or schematics or anything like online, but he's so smart. I think he went to like MIT and stuff, right? He took the battery and now it's the battery for his home. Right. So not only is he super base Chad, he's also gigabrained, right? Like,
yeah, he's an MIT grad. He's got plenty of patents. He built his house out of everything on his own land, and he's handy on top of this. And yeah, he's a very interesting guy. Mike, you wanted to say something there. Sorry, I cut you.
No, I was literally just saying, like, I forgot until Gary mentioned that Massey mentioned. I think Massey brought that up in the Tucker Carlson podcast he did with him, and I was like, I remember, like, once Gary brought that up, I was like, oh, because I remember listening to it and just be like, what the hell? Like, who does that? Who has the capability or the know-how to just pull out a Tesla battery and turn it into a power source for his home?
There's an entire video on it, man. He drove down here. He drove down here to Georgia, got this Tesla, and then took all the batteries out, got them in series in his home, and plugged them in. And
which is for those that haven't worked with it, like, working with batteries in series like that is extremely deadly. Like, if you make one mistake and you like bridge that connection, you're literally cooked. Like, you're not cooked like the meme. Like, you're cooked like you're charred and like smoking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe a little warning should have come along with that. He just made it look like it was another, everyday science.
Yeah, he's like, oh, they're just AA batteries. It's fine.
Yeah. So if you're out there, and you're looking for the, one guy out there that you can what's Thomas Massey doing on this? He's a pretty good thing. You know what's cool too is on the interwebs out here, I have seen more and more people who were MAGA or consider themselves MAGA, that have separated themselves from Trump and the establishment and this whole Israeli, occupation piece of the government. And after, he was basically voting against Johnson for the speakership here last week, dude, all these people started coming to bat for Thomas Massey. I mean, and that to me, man, you want to talk about some optimism, some hope, like in a dark world, that's one of the things that I'm, obviously very optimistic about is just, Bitcoin and Nostr. But the fact that you have the MAGA people who are now divorcing themselves and seeing through, the bullshit that was the last Trump administration, some of the appointees that are this administration, the fact that you've got guys who are still fighting against this, and people are now in the public, the masses that are saying, what, Thomas Massey's actually right on this. And these guys, Trump is wrong. Mike Johnson's a terrible guy. He's the last person that should be the Speaker of the House. That's pretty badass.
It's long-term social capital, right? Like, social credit systems are horrible. Social capital is good. And you build that by doing good work, speaking the truth. And when you are wrong and when you fuck up, own it, right? That was like a huge thing I learned in my time in, was like, you better, in that debriefing at the end of it, if you fucked up and you knew it, you better say something about it. And you better have some sort of solution on how you're going to fix it next time, or some sort of feedback or something along those lines. But self-reflection and admitting openly, like, hey guys, I really fucked up and here's how I'm going to fix it next time. That goes miles, because the dude next to you might have done the same thing or consider the same thing. But that builds up that social capital that they know that you're thinking about it, right? You're thinking about, like, how do I make the team better? What did I do that let everybody else down? How was I the weakest link in this chain? And how can I make sure it never happens again? Right. And if people have that mentality, they have that perception of you because your historied experience of that, I mean, that's low time preference, right? And the same applies in Bitcoin. Bitcoiners don't forget, man. Like, Bitcoiners from like way back when, you ask somebody like, oh yeah, they're like, they did X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah back in the day. Giant scammer. Don't fucking trust them, right? Like, there's some people like Bitcoin Jesus is now like persona non grata for a lot of people, just because he went on scamming and tried a bunch of other stupid shit, right? So reputation's big.
Amen.
Jordan? As it should be.
Mike? Yeah.
No, I want to hear from Jordan. Jordan's been kind of quiet this time.
He has been very quiet.
Yeah, I've just been taking it all in, and I've been thinking about how much us as an organization have leaned into a lot of this different freedom tech, and how it's allowing us to grow and prosper. And we've got just a ton of dudes out there crushing it, like making names for themselves. And I mean, I think to be part of an organization that has that like reputation of just like taking over one mission after another, guys stepping up, like filling the void. A lot of people don't know what's like goes behind the scenes, but it's just like a wave of people just helping out and starting new missions and like running with it. And it's
don't name names, but like give some examples. Like, what have people stepped up to do?
Like, we've got, well, I will name his name because he gives it every day, but Coleman, like doing the spaces every freaking day, every weekday, like that's amazing. And the consistency and he does a great job with it.
He's got over 90 shows already. We're sitting on number 69 right now.
Yeah.
Gary.
Crazy. We've got guys that have taken over, doing some of like our intake of new members, like getting them into the right groups and stuff.
That's a big one.
That is huge. Like, it's just, sometimes it's just like admin things. And so, and sometimes it's like big idea things and everything in between. So if you're out there watching, like, know that this is more than just a show, especially if you're new to this, like reach out, join us. Like, find one of these missions to get on, or create your own that you think Bitcoin veterans should be doing.
Yeah, and while we're on this subject, I just actually want to go over here. Let me get my producer to work the mouse the right way. He'll get it. Bitcoin Alaska.
It's a hard piece of tech, dude.
Yeah, Wade Hoke in Bitcoin Veterans is the leader of this event up here. Bitcoin Alaska is going on in Juneau, Alaska, July 25th. I believe it is July 3rd through the 6th. Get your tickets now, man. It's one of those events where Juneau's not a huge town. It's not going to be a giant conference, but it is going to be the first Bitcoin Veterans Conference, and the amount of work that Wade has put into this thing, man. There are shows I go through and I go, man, I didn't mention this, and I kick myself every time because there's a billion things going on. But there is going to be, whale days where people are literally going to go out and see whales in the sound out there. I think that was actually pretty cool. It's a family event, so if you've got kids and you want to bring them up there, you can do it. They've obviously got places for you for lodging, and there's plenty of this stuff up there in terms of
they have lodging that will take Bitcoin too.
Amazing, right? So yeah, 169 days, 16 hours, 22 minutes, 17 seconds now. You can get tickets on bitcoinalaska.org, and hats off to everybody that is putting this in. I mean, obviously there's a lodging tab, there's a speaker and sponsorships. There's about the event, the reception cruise, and, kind of a welcome to Juneau, and the amount of work that Wade has put into not only Bitcoin Alaska, but the amount of work he's put into getting with state and local officials about Bitcoin adoption. This guy is an absolute animal when it comes to, getting out there and, trying, like just literally trying. And I'll tell you what, when guys get out there who are armed to the teeth, and, Wade's kind of that unsuspecting guy, but he's that powerhouse at the end of the day that knows no quit. He's got a depth of knowledge that I think rivals anybody in Bitcoin. And this event, I think, is going to, absolutely shock people in terms of, what they take away from it.
My favorite thing in Nashville was watching Wade basically sell Bitcoin and get them to download a hot wallet. And it was, if you watched him in action, if you ever saw him doing this, you would think like, man, he would be smooth as hell talking to the ladies if he could talk like this. But he's just like, oh yeah, you just do that. Hey, boo, boo. And they're like, boom, they're Bitcoiners. And he just does that. And he does things like he's doing with this conference, which I was like, I don't know, man, you said you had a lot on your plate. And he's like, I'm just going to do it. It's wild. Like the people we've come into contact and gotten to know really well since Nashville. And even before that, like, it's amazing what Wade's doing.
He also catches some mean fish too. Like that fish that he fried up for us down in Nashville was amazing.
I didn't see a Noster link on that website though. So
all right, don't go. It sucks.
We'll share it on Noster for you, Wade, and with all of Gary's followers anyway. I don't have quite the cloud over there yet, but yeah, we'll definitely continue to push that and make plans now. Lodging first, get your lodging, then get your tickets to fly out there. I think it's going to be one hell of an event. Mike, you somewhat mentioned something when I was asking for topics tonight, a little bit about tracking some of what's going on out in California. Do you have any updates on that in terms of what you want to do? We've got some guys out here asking about any California fire conspiracy chat updates for the day.
I talked to a coworker that's out there, and he was like, "It's absolutely arson." So,
dude, they're catching guys left and right.
Yeah, like that was not news to me. Like it was unsurprising, but it was, a dude that lives in LA that was like, yeah, absolutely, it's arson. People are getting arrested.
Yeah, the thing that I was particularly watching for that you guys know about is I was watching to make sure that there were a bunch of, items that were colored blue that were surviving, like out in Maui. That was
the picture of the trash cans.
Yeah, like that was going to particularly concern me because, like, I don't care what your position is on conspiracy theories. Directed energy weapons are real. Like the technology is there, and it's been proven that specific lasers do not respond to blue coloring like they do to other materials. So that's real. I didn't hold it in great or high stock, and it doesn't look like this is any sort of like it looks like this is like people were clearly paid and equipped to go around and start fires in California. The interesting thing is the fact that a lot of homeowners insurance dropped coverage in the months prior, and it's not just normal people that got dropped. It was a lot of celebrities and everything that got dropped too. And Gavin Newsom just gave a interview with a member of the press or media where he talked about how they had a plan for Los Angeles 2.0 already lined up, and to have major mass housing residential buildups for this entire area already.
Where he did that shimmy, that weird that was a weird thing, man. Like I watched that and I was like, dude, that looks a little weaselly to me. Like it literally looks like he's like, it's all coming together, and
he's giddy, like he's getting excited about it.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I really, really, really want to bring up because of our experiences out in West North Carolina. Our friends over at S2 Underground, he did a brief on the California side, but he led with this information first. The stuff going on in West North Carolina is not rectified. There's still over 3,500 families without homes. FEMA is continuing to do a lot of fuckery where they're not supporting these families. They're actually pushing them they're not allowing them to stay in hotels anymore, but they're not giving them housing, and they're not allowing them to build housing because they're not giving them the permits to do so. And they're also not allowing other private citizens to be able to put tiny homes on their property to house these individuals. So there's a lot of there's
when you say not letting, right? Like what does that mean exactly, right?
So,
like that's the real problem here, is because like not letting, I mean, bro, if that happens and like my house is gone and I've got land, I'm going to fucking build something there. And if you want to come knock it down, I'm going to fucking shoot you because my family needs a house.
Well, I think that's what they're wanting.
That's what, and that's what they're up against now, right? Is you've got county commissioners who are literally saying you can't live on this land because this is not the type of structure that has been permitted to be here. And we don't care that it's the coldest time of year out here. Like this is what, I talked to to our buddy Jim earlier today, the guy that's the 75th Ranger Regiment, sniper instructor who's running Resilient Recovery that we donated all of the money to, and they're fighting a ton of things out there. He's doing an excellent job, by the way. Extremely grateful to the Bitcoin veterans and everybody who's helped him out. I got to tell you, when you've given as much Bitcoin to this guy as we have, and he is doing incredible things in that area, and he still has, the wherewithal to go out there and collect intelligence on the surrounding areas in terms of the government and the fuckery that's going on, whether it's at the state, local, or federal level. We're thinking about this as Bitcoin veterans about, having a media presence go up there and document some of this kind of stuff. So, be on the lookout for that. But in terms of this California thing, I thought it was interesting, Mike, what you said the other day, or what you sent to us earlier. And then I found this clip, and there's two clips. There's a former kind of a has-been conspiracy celebrity in the middle of this. Take it with a grain of salt, that part.
But before you start the video, I have one thing I want to add, but continue.
Sure.
There's also the fact that the federal government did not pledge any funding to help with West North Carolina, and there has now been 100% pledge to cover the damage from the Biden administration for all this, on top of Newsom having this Los Angeles 2.0 plan. So and then you also consider, and we might get into this after the video, then you also consider who's actually making money and profiting from all this, but we could talk about that after.
Yeah, just be, pay attention to what he says here.
Thousands of National Guard men and women that have been on here. We pre-positioned 120 engines, helicopters, dozers, water tenders. We did that on Sunday, 2 days before this event.
I'm sorry, what?
Said where there's smoke, there's fire. And of course, you've also heard it said wherever there's a smoking podcaster, there's a fire truck. Dang it.
To rebuild these communities back and rebuild them better than they were when we started this fire.
Some Freudian slips going on here.
Oops.
Yeah, so Gavin Newsom talking about pre-positioning all of these prior to these events. That's a little weird. And then, you've got this guy who's in charge of the public works talking about we started this fire. Like, this, obviously, there's a ton of arson going on. There's a bunch of guys who are caught on camera with blowtorches that, there are literally residents going out there and wrapping these guys up or getting them on film one way or another, holding them sometimes until the police come. And then what we're hearing is these same people are being released to go back out and do it some more.
Oh, imagine that. It's kind of like all the other, illegal immigrants that are doing very physical assaults and other things that are being let loose in states like, New York. The other interesting thing too is that who's going to benefit from it besides just Gavin Newsom, right? Like, there's an entire industry of insurance companies that are going to benefit from it, or maybe not so much. A lot of the housing insurance is going to actually be having to pay out the teeth if they didn't cancel coverage before all this. But then the home developers are going to make an absolute killing. How many of these politicians have stakes in these companies? I would like to know. I bet there's a lot. How many of them also own their own private home renovation or construction business? I bet there's quite a few. It's disgusting what they're doing, because it also seems like it's kind of like a money laundering scheme, because how many billions did Gavin Newsom dedicate towards the homeless problem, and nothing happened. And then all of a sudden he's just going to come through and just be like, oh, look, all the housing built burned down. We just got to build new stuff now to put them in. And then there's also I think it was the same interview that I mentioned earlier, where he gets pressed on the whole reservoirs not being filled. And then he gets pressed on, he's like, well, what about the Palisades one? That one wasn't full. It's like, oh, well, that's a local issue. That wasn't a state issue. It's it's in your state, it's local, and it's your issue. You're the governor of the state. Anything that happens that is a failure within your state is your problem and your fault. Gavin Newsom's a freaking snake, dude. I can't stand this guy.
Yep. We got Montani in the Zap.stream. Losses get socialized while gains get hoarded. Welcome to the insurance industry.
Yep.
And again, it's what can you do about what can anybody do about it? One, you starve the machine. Buy Bitcoin, study Bitcoin, understand why that starves the machine first and foremost. Two, start accumulating that. Start getting the intel on your community. Not intel, but just be a good member of your society, community, right? Intel. But it is intel is just knowing shit, right? It's just knowing what's going on.
Well,
there's nothing spooky
intel
about
is just information with analysis. And so you should be in your neighborhood getting information on what your community needs, where you can help, where people can help you. That's what a community does. And then the intel part is just adding analysis. Okay, knowing I can do that, what does that mean?
Yeah, because if you don't know your county commissioner is a shithead and is going to deny a bunch of permits for retarded reasons, actual retarded reasons, then you won't know. And when a crisis hits, you're up shit's creek or whatever, right? And then you're left to dire straits, and then you're left to more drastic measures, but we don't want to get there, right? You don't want people backed into a corner where they feel hopeless with no opportunity, right? So study Bitcoin.
Start to get desperate.
Learn your community, get the intel on your community, make friends in your community, find other like-minded people in your community, and fix this shit, right?
Yep. Because it's important to be aware of these things, just so you can be kind of remain cognizant and aware of your surroundings, to make sure that because to Gary's point too, if you're one of these individuals, if you're one of us that has been stacking up Bitcoin a little bit, you have a treasure trove of capital to not be pushed into a situation of desperation. You're gonna be able to be that calming force, or that emotional, spiritual anchor for those around you for when things start to pop off. Because these kinds of events, they push people to their limits. And those limits either push people together to where they come together as a community, or they push people into desperation and they start kind of like digging or eating each other. And that becomes a problem.
Yeah. Couple other interesting points that I found out during the week was obviously there is the 2028 Olympics that are going to LA. And there's this
forgot about that.
There's some, you know, property that they need to do some things, and there's also this want by, you know, people who push things like, you know, from the WEF, these 15-minute cities and things like that. One of the things that I found extremely disturbing about this whole thing was the story that the water is privately owned to 150 billion gallons a year by Linda and Stuart Resnick. And guess who these people are, right? They are the same people as a lot of the other people that are causing problems. How is it that you can take a state that has 40 million people in it that wholly depends? Like, if you guys don't know, you know, the valleys in California, like this is the most, was some of the most fertile farmland in all of America. This is where a lot of America's food comes from. And
it's the number one food producer.
Yeah. The fact that these guys literally own, you know, over 65% in terms of a private, you know, company owning 65% of their water. And this is the reason why, you know, this is not going into places like, you know, the agricultural sector or the, you know, just the reservoirs in general. The fact that they don't have, you know, fire hydrant lines full of water, like the fact that this is owned by private people and now it's been weaponized against the city of LA. This should open up so many eyes. And I got to tell you, you know, like when you're looking at this through a political lens going forward, boy, I'll tell you what, I don't know that California will ever be conservative. However, you know, this might be one of those times where people sit back and they go, holy shit, man. Like, it doesn't, at least they're noticing that it doesn't matter who you get, like these guys are always winning. And that's something that will unify people. I think a great deal.
I think we're actually seeing meaningful percentages of California starting to like make that transition. The interesting thing is a take that I heard on the PBD podcast earlier where they were talking about this. Mm-hmm. And I think that the parties that we're talking about aren't necessarily concerned about California transitioning from largely liberal to partially Republican. I don't think they're concerned about that because they're trying to push all the people that would challenge them outside of the state so they can just do whatever they want in there. That's what it seems like. Because like anybody that would challenge them, they're just like the tax regime alone is not worth me sticking around to try and fight this. Like on top of everything else, like it's just the path of least resistance is just to remove myself from the situation, which is unfortunate for everybody that's trapped there because California is one of those states where if you can't afford to leave, you are literally trapped. Like you got the Rocky Mountains. It's not like being out here in Iowa where like if I lost absolutely everything and I had to move by foot, I could easily go to almost anywhere in the country if I wanted to. It would suck. But crossing the Rocky Mountains that's a different beast.
Yeah. Totally agree. Let's do this. Gary, did you have something to say real quick?
No, I was just reminded about rolling out the red carpet for Xi Jinping that old Newsom did way back when up in San Francisco.
And I like now that you mention that, I will add that I also think that President Doomlord again, I do think that this is part of like a target softening strategy because they have been overloading the civil servants of the area with like, you know, the EMS, the police, the law enforcement, the fire departments, all of them. On top of that, there was a California-based company or owners of hospitals and health coverage that are going bankrupt now, that are selling a bunch of their hospitals over on the East Coast so that they can maintain operations in California, which is suggesting that they're under some pressure. And then there's the stuff that we had talked about in the Intel chat about the drone company, the DJI has removed all of their kind of like indicators on their map user interface of restricted airspace and all that stuff. So I think that not necessarily is it connected, but I think that there's a lot of stuff that's going to be kind of like fueling all these other target softening strategies that we've been talking about throughout the last year and a half.
Yeah, there's an MO emerging. Jordan, go ahead, Jordan. I'll finish that thought in a second. Go ahead.
Well, to tie it back to the North Carolina thing, if you remember, while we were there, the governor of North Carolina said there are some places that just shouldn't be rebuilt. So it kind of goes along with that same line. Like, what are they looking to do? They're looking to get all this land for really cheap, whether it's for the government to use it or for private business to sell it to richer people or something. It just seems like a consistent pattern of that. This is the next level of what the fiat system has to do to sustain itself. Like, it has to increase value in homes, right? That's like, that's what brought down 08. And so this is a strategy of propping it up. But like, I just think it goes to show like how desperate they are to keep the system going and how many lives they'll be completely fine wrecking to make it continue.
Yeah. This MO that's emerging that I'm noticing, right, is there are people who have extremely powerful positions in bureaucracy within the United States, some with black budgets that we don't know about for plausible deniability, whether it's, one being weather modification, others being things like direct energy weapons. But they all kind of spell out natural disasters, which leaves, the question is like, is this government doing this, or whose government is doing this? It's very easy to look at, exactly what happened in North Carolina. And, some people say, oh, just conspiracy. Not if you don't really understand, how that came to be and what happened in Western North Carolina, where 3 years of rain was dumped in a little over 48 hours. Then you start to understand that these fires not only have arsons, but there in the beginning, there were 3 places that went up at the exact same time. You can look at maps where the smoke plumes and fires, like they literally all emerge at the same time in a triangle formation. That, whether it was done by direct energy weapons or not, it looks like obviously they're using this MO of put together some sort of natural disaster, destroy the land, make it uninsured, and then we'll come back and buy it. And who was buying and who was looking to buy in North Carolina besides, just BlackRock? You also had China there. So if you've got a non-American organization that's running the science and technology department in America, and probably a lot of the other intelligence type of apparatus that are dark money, and then they are chopping up America and selling it to the highest bidder sometimes. Well, I mean, who might that be? That might be one of your biggest competitors on the world stage. And so instead of conquering America, through force and coercion and military might, what they're doing is exactly, what the American system has to be done, is you have to tear it apart through some sort of plausible deniability with a massive, quote unquote, natural disaster, and not have insurable land, and then they come back and they swoop it up. And this, to me, it looks like this is the emerging MO for 2024, 2025. But I could be wrong. I don't think I am.
Canadian wildfires.
Yeah.
And along with the CCP stuff, Biden also recently pardoned a bunch of Chinese spies. So
weird.
There's a very there's a lot of like 2 parties in particular that keep benefiting from a lot of these things happening to the U.S.
Yep. And Benjamin Netanyahu went back and said, basically, we're going to chop this country up and sell it wholesale. So
yep.
Let's hear from our sponsors. We got about 440 people out there. We appreciate everybody. We really appreciate our sponsors, and we hope you will go out there and frequent their business. They are part of the Freedom Tech Alliance here, and they're doing amazing things in this space. So Let's hear from them. Solo Satoshi is dedicated to the advancement of open source Bitcoin mining with a steadfast commitment to the security and decentralization of the Bitcoin network. As a pioneering force in the Bitcoin space, their mission is to empower individuals and businesses worldwide with innovative, secure, and decentralized mining solutions. At Solo Satoshi, they believe in the transformative power of open source software and the potential it holds for the future of Bitcoin mining. They strive to foster a community of developers and enthusiasts who share our vision of a more secure and decentralized Bitcoin landscape. Our dedication to open source principles is at the heart of their mission, driving their commitment to transparency, collaboration, and innovation. They are passionate about supporting the growth and the development of the Bitcoin network, and they recognize the critical role that open source software and developers play in achieving this goal. By promoting and contributing to open source ecosystems, they aim to facilitate a more robust and resilient Bitcoin network, ensuring its longevity and success for years to come. At Solo Satoshi, their mission is not only to provide cutting-edge mining solutions, but also to educate and inspire others about the importance of decentralization and open source principles in the Bitcoin space. They believe that by working together, we can create a future where Bitcoin mining is more accessible, efficient, and aligned with the core values of decentralization and open collaboration. A big shout out to our friends over at Punchplate. Codl.co, that's CODL.co. Punch plates are a durable medium for your Bitcoin and can store 12 words or 24-word Bitcoin backups. Storing your Bitcoin in metal ensures your keys will survive in the elements, accidental spills, and in some cases even fire. You don't have to worry about smeared ink or ripped paper and can sleep soundly knowing your Bitcoin are inscribed on a punch plate. These are the best prices you're going to find in this industry. $24 for a 24-word punch plate. It's simple. It's a punch and a plate. No little letters, no stamps with letters on them, just a punch and a plate. Go check them out at Codl.co. That's punch plate at Codl.co. All right, we're back. Thank you guys. I got to tell you, between Punch Plate and Solo Satoshi, man, some of the best people on earth out there. So anyway, I wanted to end on some good news tonight, and if anybody's got stories, we can hold those. But there is some developing news out of Florida tonight. Political strategist Samuel Arms says that Florida is going to beat Texas and have the first strategic Bitcoin reserve. That's from Simply Bitcoin. Incoming state level FOMO. And
wow.
Yeah, kind of a big deal.
Big if true, but I don't know if it's true.
Yeah, wake me up when it happens.
Yeah, that's what it's always like. I don't just do it, and then I'll be like, cool, you did it.
That's ultimately one thing that I've learned thanks to like the Bitcoin space and watching all these politicians is that there's a lot of announcements and promises of promises. But yeah. It's like, let's start seeing some action here, folks. Maybe make a posting of just like, oh, I don't know, do things like the old video games and movies did, where it's just like, it's not like, hey, in 3 years, we're going to have this great movie that we have this 30-second trailer for. It's like, oh, hey, we have this badass movie. It's out right now. So why don't you go watch it? So like, why don't we get something like that? It's like, we signed this bill. We actually bought and put into the Bitcoin reserve today. Why don't we get that?
It's proof of work, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't fucking care until you have proof of work. Like, show me the proof of work.
That's politics.
And then I care.
They're gonna move slow as shit.
What I think is interesting here is you've got a guy that ran for ran for the presidency in terms of DeSantis down there, and Florida's been doing some things, and so this could push Donald Trump, right? Is like, if you've got DeSantis, who will be the first guy in America to literally sign the bill that says, hey, we're now on a Bitcoin standard down here in Florida. Now you put these two megalomaniacs into a race for, being the crown champ on adopting Bitcoin first and literally having it in writing. I think that's maybe the most interesting thing about this post or this development is like, you start playing personalities in politics and see who the bigger megalomaniac is, and understanding. I think this kind of highlights that is like there is an understanding that this cannot be ignored anymore. And I think for me, It's in the news cycle. It's one of those things where I'm like, boy, yeah, let's see which one of these guys is going to be the first one across the finish line with that kind of stuff. So just some thoughts from.
Well, and to that note, to continue the positivity, like the fact that Florida and Texas are now kind of like in a brotherly rivalry to compete for who's going to do the most Bitcoin stuff first. Well, Texas is way in the lead with all their mining, so we got to acknowledge that first. But the funny thing, or the interesting thing to me, is that with this transition away from a unipolar world to a multipolar world, where the U.S. is going to be more incentivized to distance ourselves from Asia and the Middle East and stop, meddling in those politics and everything, which they're gonna try and hang on to it for as long as they can. Don't get me wrong, but the U.S. is going to be far more incentivized to work within the Gulf of America and start trading with particularly Central America and South America much more aggressively. And to that point, like the Gulf of, I love saying it, the Gulf of America, Texas and Florida, like the entire Gulf Strip there should be massive hubs of trade for the U.S. Like Houston already is, but Houston should be bigger. Florida should be bigger. Louisiana should be bigger. Mississippi should be bigger. Like that entire space, it's essentially a massive protected harbor in the way I see it. I mean, you got all the oil down there too. Like, and then you start increasing the amount of trade and the amount of production that we have, like manufacturing. Like, why are we manufacturing in Southeast Asia right next to China? Why aren't we manufacturing down in like South America, like in Central America? If we started doing that instead of just, doing the economic hitman strategy of tricking so many South American and Central American countries into these infrastructure development programs that we come in and sabotage so we get them indebted to us forever, maybe we actually start building some shit down there. Then like the Gulf of Mexico is going to be like a massive source. And then you have them stacking Bitcoin on top of it. Like the South is going to rise again if they follow that kind of roadmap.
All right, Shane, I just dropped something in the StreamYard chat. Pull that shit up, throw it on the screen. This is the best hopium you'll ever see.
Yes, sir.
Zoom in on that thing.
All right,
just take it in. Right, what are we looking at?
So this is from Halving Tractor 2025. What is that? January 12th. 268 days after halving. Current $94,353.78. 2012 scaled 556,000. 2016 scaled 100.
So what it's doing is it's matching.
Stop reading the numbers. Hold on. Stop reading the numbers. Yeah. What we're seeing is you've got 4 different lines on this graph here, right? And the 3 that are complete go all the way across the graph are basically the price of Bitcoin after the halving. So days after the halving, right? The price of Bitcoin. And that bold black line there in the bottom left is where we are at right now. And you can see that we are just warming up here, right? So all the strategic reserve FOMO, all this other crazy stuff, things are going to get silly. And my message is stay humble and stack sats. And what that means is don't get excited. If you blow your load at $1 million a coin, you're a bitch. Don't do it. Stay liquid, right? Like stay solvent. Don't overextend yourself. Don't get too excited. When you see your stack rising, ignore it. And remember that 1 Bitcoin is 1 Bitcoin.
One asshole is one asshole.
One asshole is one asshole. Amen. But all I'm saying is when she gets wild, when the states start to FOMO in, all the nation states and the big announcements happen and everything like that, don't get caught up in the hype. Like, remember, your house isn't worth shit. Don't sell your stack to fucking pay off your mortgage. Like, why would you do that?
No,
your house is not worth it. Don't buy a Lambo. Don't let these UTX hoes come out and take your sats from you, right?
That's it.
Keep your head on straight. Get with good men. They'll keep your head on straight for you, right? And stay humble and stack sats. The strategy doesn't change just because nation states are coming into this. Nothing fucking changes. Bitcoin is the same. TikTok, next block, motherfucker.
If anything, to caveat what Gary is saying is, if you're looking at this chart, whether it's 400,000 or 6 million, in terms of what we're seeing in this run, I don't think any of this is any of the nation states, any of the states here in America, the sovereign wealth funds, the ETFs, I don't think any of that's factored into what we're seeing right here. I know the political side definitely isn't factored into what we're seeing here because nobody thought that nation states were coming in 2025. Like a couple of years ago, everybody's like, this will be at least 2028, 2032, somewhere beyond. No, it's literally here. It's happening. And that million, like that 6 million mark, like that's no joke, man. Like that's what I'm saying is that 6 million mark isn't factoring in any of those pieces of the puzzle right now. And I think that's some extremely bullish news.
Well, and that's why you got to study Bitcoin, right? Because if you got a whole coin right now and it's going to be worth, 6 million murder notes, like you best believe you're going to be sweating that if it's sitting on some exchange or if it's sitting like on your phone, right? On like some like random app. Like learn this thing, figure out how to do it, study the techniques, come to Bitcoin Veterans. We'll teach you. We got a whole chat that just always popping off. Self-custody and privacy, right? Don't dox your stack. Don't let people know. Be a vocal advocate, be a good community member, but like get ready for the fucking ride because it's coming.
Dude, so like what basically I'm trying to break this chart down dummy style because I'm a dummy. So basically this is showing that if it follows this trend from the other halvenings, that basically the high based on previous performance, it would be like a 2 million per coin and the low end would be 200,000 and so the average is like 1.1 million by the end of this cycle.
We're going to shake out somewhere in there. Yeah.
Right. Somewhere in between there would be
anything's possible, right? They're going to
Right.
print until their eyes bleed, right? Like we're not even talking about money printing here, right? The money printing can only accelerate. It has to accelerate. That's the only way this thing keeps going.
Yeah. The fix has to be greater every time. That's Keynesian economics. If nobody taught you Keynesian economics, you have to print more money faster and you have to spend more money faster all the time. So if our last injection was $8 trillion to get, how many years? 4 years now. Like we went $8 trillion for 4 years. What's the next going to be? It's going to be $20 trillion and it may only last 3 years or possibly 2 years. That's money printing that people don't understand.
They're going to print it just so they can buy Bitcoin. And that is going to get a lot of people. It's going to rip so much that there's going to be a lot of people that do sell, and it like recreates demand for dollar too. It's gonna find like some threat.
Yeah, all these retarded funds that they have to like re-index or rebalance all their balance sheets and stuff like that. Like Bitcoin rips and it's like, oh well, we have our 5% turned into 15. We should probably rebalance because that's what our document says that we must do every time. Like, yeah, they're gonna dump a bunch and their paper ass hands are gonna dump to all the fucking hodlers and stackers, and it's gonna go right to my cold storage, where one day my kids' might inherit it. Maybe.
They're also going to use it to defend the strength of the U.S. dollar while also pumping the stock exchanges like the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones, because you can't have the dollar getting too strong versus all other assets, because then like it starts to break the whole debt spiral that like Luke Roman and Preston Pish talked about. But you also can't have the dollar being too weak either. So they're going to use it to balance things while Bitcoin still climbs in price. It's going to be fascinating to watch because, very bullish for Bitcoin, very interesting for geopolitical game theory coming forward. And to what Gary also said, like, don't blow your load. Keep dry powder, because there is also the possibility for all this to come true and they still try and tank markets while Trump comes into office to try and set him up for failure. But then it comes right back up, right as the fear gets most potent, just like with COVID. K-shaped recovery. Don't be part of the casualty.
Yeah, we got somebody in the X comments. We got a Fed trying to get us got. No thanks. Go to your local meetup and learn some shit. Nice try, Fed.
Oh man.
No recommendations. Do your own research.
I was going to
KYC not me.
KYC
not me.
I will throw it around to you guys real quick for all the newbies
seriously,
out there.
KYC not.me. Like, go check that out.
That wasn't a joke. That was real.
There you go. Any recommendations in terms of wallets or signing devices for new ones? I'll just take Gary. What's your favorite?
I'm a Cold Card fan. So,
Jordan?
Nice try, Fed.
Mike?
I've tried Trezor, I've tried Ledger over the years. I've tried almost all of them. Cold Card's the only one I like. And plus, I mean, I'm biased.
Whatever works for you.
I've known NVK for a while. I love the dude. I love the people that have worked for him and with him at CoinKite. Like, Cold Card's where it's at.
Yeah. And shout out to our boy Mike out there from Christian Rangers, man. Decentralize everything. Now that the state adoption is coming, we have to ensure the original use case peer-to-peer decentralized transactions are upheld, not this store of value investment narrative that Saylor sells. Man, I'll tell you what, if you guys, Micah is just one of those guys that you gotta love, man. I hope you're doing well out there, my man, and we gotta get together. There is going to possibly be a conversation between he and I pretty soon on some certain psychedelics out there, and I think from our conversations in the truck running around doing KLEs out there, I'm super excited. Probably once I have my new studio set up. But parting thoughts for tonight, guys. We got to end this autism fest at some point.
I will say stay away from the FOMO around MicroStrategy and Saylor. That's my personal take. Just be concerned about Bitcoin. Don't get caught up in all the FOMO nonsense that social media influencers are trying to peddle. And also keep in mind, slay your heroes. That includes Saylor. Saylor talked about trying to become the next big banking family on the Bitcoin space. So just do not pedestalize these people.
And if you want a chance at meeting Saylor, MicroStrategy headquarters is going to be hosting DC Bit Devs on January 23rd at 5:30. Check out meetup.com and RSVP for that. You might even run into somebody you know on this year's stream. If you're not interested in that, come out to Shenandoah Bitcoin Club this Saturday, 10 a.m. ShenandoahBitcoin.club.
I love
just in case there was any doubt whether we scripted anything or not. No, we literally do it live, and sometimes we run into contradictions like that, and it's beautiful and it's autistic. And
it's not a contradiction. I'm going to Saylor's house to talk about Medium Exchange.
It's the perfect veteran dichotomy in my opinion.
Yeah. And going off of that is exactly what I wanted to just touch again. If you're new to the show, we have missions we can get you on. If you just want to get connected with other Bitcoin veterans, like come check us out. If you have ideas of something you'd like to run with and are looking for support to help run it, like get tapped into our network, and there will be guys that are interested that will help you. So, I mean, it kind of is it's a thing. It's an organism that works both ways. Like we all just help each other. It's awesome. So reach out, get in touch.
Well, to everybody out there behind the scenes, it's making Bitcoin veterans happen. You guys are incredible. Everybody out there in the audience, thank you guys for tuning in on Zap Stream. I don't know how much we got tonight, but I'm looking at 10K here, 2, 4. I mean, you name it. You guys are incredible out there. I appreciate it. Thanks to Gary for tuning us into this. Couple of parting notes. We do, I should say Bitcoin veterans. Our boy Coleman does a daily show on Spaces on X every day, and I got to give him all the credit in the world. He's already above us in terms of show numbers. I think it's like 95, 96 or something like that. He's absolutely crushing it. He's got great guests. He's got great people that come up there and talk all the time and ask great questions. They talk about a lot of things that, we're interested in vets, whether it's guns or resilience, communities, citadels, what's going on in the market, you name it, man. Like they are just absolutely firing on all cylinders. So go check them out. Again, bitcoinalaska.org, I believe, and go out there, get your tickets if you want to come up. We're going to have some fantastic speakers out there, and I'm excited for it, one way or another. I know there are going to be some representatives from the Bitcoin veterans cadre here, and there's going to be BitBlock Booms coming up. There's a ton of stuff. If you want to get involved, bitcoinveterans.org will get you plugged in, and you don't have to be a veteran. It's just one of those spaces that is led by veterans. I think that's, how we work best is there is a certain love of country and our fellow man that we've developed. And if you're interested in finding a bright spot in this very dark world, I got to tell you, between the decentralized tech of Bitcoin, Nostr, Meshtastic, and some of these other things that are coming around, this is a great time to be alive. It's a great time to set up your legacy for future generations and do things that generations haven't done for us in a long time. So with that, guys, I appreciate everything. And we will end it there. We'll see you guys next Tuesday, 9 p.m. back here, same time, same place. Peace.
Be peaceful, not harmless.